this a good moment? I can
Always
call you back.
honored,
Yeah?
honored to talk to you,
Yeah.
David. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so amazing, of course, if you raise a child and good parentedness and things, you raise a healthy village and you raise a healthy nation, don't you? It'd be a pretty much asymmetric warfare that um, concepts where uh, children and innocent people could be just victims in someone's narrative is something where somebody's really not home where that is, isn't it? Um, but things that are going on can be out of what most people could think. How do they affect something, and how did it occur? And those are things which, if somebody wants to, they could look into this work and they can hear what could be really is what is a strange attractor, which we're all drawn to because some charges exist which need to be discharged, and when charges are discharged, that's a new reset, and that's positive economic inductance, not negative economic inductance. In one's own self, and you're modelling what's natural about having proper immunity within our body. And so what causes attachment where something is to all kinds of habit and stuff really is where more attachment was and trauma was bonded with that. And so then fear came along of abandonment, but healthiness really is yours or mine or anyone's emotional availability to be remained open, and in your prudence internationally, someone really should be expecting a child more to play a similar role, and otherwise you've really got a sort of an ancestral, emotional, damaged condition where people as children grow up to be adults, and then they wander around and they are totally insensitive in what they do, and that can bully others and things. But all unilateral, meaning one-sidedness, is there in the brain often. And any contractedness where somebody got underneath something which was just unilateral also, like legal name fraud, and that's a fictional name versus the use of a real name, which really should be a real true name, because it's lawful you'd use that, not a legal fictional name. And a son of a per, or a daughter of a per, or a per daughter, or a per son is an office. It's an orifice in the government. If you look in Black's Law Dictionary, and that's a corporation. You can't have a naturalised corporation. And so where somebody only can be given an idea as a corporation only, and you're just the same as a piece of furniture, the same list. That's fascism, where you're mixing up the living with the dead, which, it's really an officer where anyone is really is a subclass of person, like a judge or something. Yet not a son of a per se, but in a different class. And a per son is somebody the son of a per, or a daughter of a per, or per daughter, and that all those words mean you're an infant descendant, which means that you're dead in the head, sort of thing. It's called a civilita mortis, and then somebody's judged as a Phyllis Millis, which is obviously you wouldn't be able to use the law maybe to get yourself out of a wet paper bag. That's what that means. And then also a Phyllis Millis. And so a Phyllis Millis is someone who could be considered as somebody's not having any certain parentage. And so, These are names, and nobody's a name, you see. And so somebody looks at anybody and they give them a name, and after that, three strikes and you're out. They're just looking at somebody who they obviously have to control, which the system was set up to do that. So it's sort of a lot of victimless crime, wrong. Never was a crime before. All of a sudden that is wrong. That's wrong. Never a crime wasn't a crime. And so, corpus delicti is running behind everything. And wasn't somebody looking into what the meaning of that is? Yet, what happens when you, as a couple, you're recruited, and if you look at in law enforcement and families engaged in law enforcement, you could look at how ACS was put together in New York City from the civil service list, and then you've got people who are charged up, to take kids away, and what happens when those are people who could have more power suddenly than the police ever did or something. Today it's not right that you could, of course, never was, that a court order would have had to be to have removed a child. But in days gone by in New York City, that's not the case, is it? That's what happened to me. And does anything get put back after something has gone on like that? It's like you don't get any recalls because someone did the wrong thing today, and they don't say, please bring that washing machine back in because we need to fix something about it. It's really what happens when a stranger is just appointed to act, as a prudent parent would, and your parent and your own self and things have been as support removed, and it's just equal to codes adopted by the corporation. It's well below where the people as a chain of command. And the fourth estate is pre-ordered. It's pre-authorized. You can't have government without such a pre-authorization, because you've got we the people that's above any corporation that's below. And one should find where the pen is mighty in the sword rather than being cajoled by external sort of funding, which you could see going on, and then recruiting all of those that completely suffer from this, like surrogate spousal relation, like we've been talking about. And then you've got really a lot of noted enmeshment and like a cognitive emotional condition, which really isn't clean whatsoever. And so where somebody is talking about a concept like involution, which we do have, where you don't have evolution. Can you talk about that just straight up in scientific terms versus you have to be convinced about something religious and you're trying to convince people about some religious point of view, which is called enmeshment. If you're just talking about does a concept like involution exist, you could say yes, and does evolution exist, you could say no, it doesn't. And so it's just physics. And so what's a paradigm where something has been that has caught a paralysis to be able to see something, suddenly gets broken, because you've got a cognitive, emotional cleanness and not some overlay from something which precognitively caused you to interpret certain things in a certain way. When my boy was taken, I did hear people say, hey, how good it is to see a little honky taken, you see. The emotional incest of damage where people are, and where they've got taken over and got physical custody of your property and the relation, and you've got this gestational surrogacy going on where artificial wombs are put, people just run and jump into those, Um, it's just wrongful that you've got government policies that set up more of it where, apparently to protect children, but then you've got victims of those abuse laws, which cause families to be split up and automatically basic, and children to be of someone else is intended parenting, yeah?
Okay.
And so is it okay that a couple of other nations decide a nation where you are, your fate, and they're just going to cut your land up and give it away to someone because that's their idea? This is the kind of thing that's gone on, isn't it? You've got a physical custody wherever something is in a prudence, and certain it is in our awareness, in common custom. You and I, we all are prudent, but how would somebody be who doesn't have that same bonding, doesn't have that same priming, doesn't have that same induction, but has another induction instead, like a surrogate spousal relation that somebody was raised with? They could have unique sexual preference of expression and things, and a lot of things could cause someone to feel not a necessary deep satiation about your childhood, but total unsatisfactoriness about that. And so life relationship then goes to play more a key modelled role, and all physical and all mental sort of health concern, really, and other oversensitivities that goes on. It's really because most people there are really beloved, they're completely overreactors and enmeshed. And a child really of a silent witness looking at parentedness or prudence, which isn't, but just from a selfish inner need being satisfied, where always is really being done covertly, because most of us would look at it and think that just doesn't look right. And so where activities where boundaries suddenly just get blurred because you've got stand down orders, don't investigate this crime, you've got too many of them. You just got too many of them. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have one. Why do you have to have so many? It just, charges that need to be discharged, you see, it's by the fourth estate. And it's just existent boundaries that should exist, which when they don't, it's very blurry. You've got a lot of grey area, and in between what's lawful and legal. And so victims really have to have taken on the emotional burden of being a victim. Of course, it's not the prudence of a parent in the international and national arena. Yet, who's the victim that's in, like Gazans? I think more than half of all of them are under 18, I think. So can we take a look at really what the role more is in partnering where anybody is, and your own, of course, and look into not having any enmeshed relatedness, because where somebody's parent didn't get a proper felt surrogate relation, a spousal relation, and that disappeared sort of thing, suddenly that surrogate got put onto the child, and it was like a surrogate spousal relation that started to go on. If you can see what that is, so what the cause is of attachment trauma bondedness, where people will say, well, I'll kill myself if you don't, and they will threaten others and this sort of thing. It's a real deep fear of abandonment, and like what the message is here, we've just been talking about it. Healthiness really is being more emotionally available and remaining emotionally available. And one can then expect, children to sort of really play a proper role in life. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it is. Of course, silently, most everybody's drafted to give all their substance to fiction and to impact emotional well-being really for life. You and I really should be looking at the role played more emotional and not have any of that overlay, but to be able to be observed to see that and have pattern recognition where surrogate spousal relation would have been that impacted anybody's well-being well into adulthood, which you could have a look at and you could see it. Because people could have felt missed out on key points where childhood was in relation, where others really are. And how do you relate to kids and people at your same age and this sort of thing. But if you look at this, privately, individually, domestically, and now you can look at interstate and international type of relatedness and things, and you can look at the organisations that's been created, like and Interpol really backdoors all the intel to the Great Council first, and then they divvy it out to others that they reckon, like Five Eyes reckons that they get the next divvying of that information that's backdoored through Zionism, through as well to the East and West Vaticanus, and you've got Interpol, run by the Great Council, and it's really a setup of policing, like what we were talking about, where you recruit people and you've got happy feelings about joining law enforcement. You're going to get a lot of people to want to join into that, and you're going to get a different type of law enforcement that is kind, but certain it is that if you've got pain and ugliness ripping across your screen, and that's the only Bravo kind of that jumps into that. I mean, you might have a total different set about things, wouldn't you? I mean, your view that you have is going to colour, your ethnocentricity is going to colour your worldview. Most people will say that. So CBCO's global operations really engages 195 nations, and its use of Interpol really shared data, backdoor data to itself, and then just like divvying out to whoever else that they would like, to have its controlled effect, because everybody else is in a cell, and 2/3 of all those recruits really are recruited more by the controllers of the Great Council, not you or I or anybody. Mostly not even available to these jobs. And so you've got to keep in mind that it's all said that Interpol, where that is sort of separate from the UN, yet you've got like an Interpol, of course, that's formed in 1923, didn't you? And it's just 100 years ago. So it was in September the 7th in 1923. And so you've got a lot of overreach by government, overreach by police abuse and law enforcement. And what do you see in recruitment? You're going to see, like if you look at military special intel ops or in law enforcement, you're going to see like SWAT teams and tanks ripping across the screen, and to get recruitment. And what are you going to think where you see that? And who does that recruit? You see? So who are you recruiting, and what kind of mental set's that person going to have? I mean, is that a normal mental set for someone to be in a role like, or is it just a fraternized condition? And obviously, you're not going to get anything out of that, you see. But you've got a lot of things which could be looked at, isn't it? By the force of state to clear things up, and have positive economic inductance, so that you don't have any of this. How can you bribe anybody when you've got positive economic inductance? You've got an account you can draw from, and you're the real estate, and that's the sacred cow not be spoken about much. But you're the real estate. You're of unlimited worth far more than gold. But when you use your friendly recruiting protocol, which you'd imagine all of us would in the golden age, and you see the recruits all skyrocketing instead, yeah,
Okay.
and all jumped on. Wow, we care. Yes, right. All of us, yes, we do. We care about a community. We care about children. We care about things, and you'll see everybody jumps on board something that's like this. Why are people hesitant to jump on board anything that doesn't make sense? Obvious. So what happens where only violence would have been used for recruitment, like what we've been talking about as an idea, just to be considered, versus very important. You've got ex-officers where all things goes on like that, and don't you have a lot of violence and murder ongoing where groups are like that as in life? Yes, you do. You've got beast barrack training, and that's just not a normal training. Abuse of certainly gets kicked off, and who ends up kicking all of that off for all of us, maybe they don't have the same values as you and I have whatsoever because they're just being used, but they've got an agentic state to be loyal to their company or whatever, and they might totally not have proper ideals like you or I, but a job that causes one to behave really in a manner that's not proper common parlance, and abuse sort of seekers seeking out jobs where something is abusive, you could really not pack low-hanging fruit anywhere, couldn't you? All need a positive example, really more of a public servicing, and yet all have to look at sort of what's backdoored to the Great Council War Room and their international affair and how they're running all their nations, corporation, and that's just below you and I. It's where's the fourth estate where that is, and that's what comes along in this golden age. That is the strange attractor, actually. Yeah, so it's really amazing because you really have got what's more dangerous actually than a foreign enemy, which is really your own nation and not having any internal control, isn't it? So where you look where criminal condition is definite, you could see that mouths when they open, they can have been targeted. And so obviously that's a criminal organisation because that's protected conduct, protected disclosure. There's no way that somebody else could commit another crime by retaliating against. But you're going to see agents, agents involved at the highest level, and they're not really working for you or I, not at all. They're working for themselves, working for the company, not working from the land and from the laws of the land. And when you've got a House and a Senate just run by controllers of CB Cower and everybody there sort of getting on a payroll because they've got on the big poof Pfizer, put stock in that. You've got a nation engaged in global COVID scam and all the other genocidal programs really being directed by, and body bags just coming back, which really have got dangerous treason behind all of it. As a corpse, people's credit spent, and body bags of kids coming back, and all it is a black swan, and done to a good nation. People can not stand by, just be lemming about it, but activate the fourth estate, like look into this. Of course, CB Cower, which, it's a criminal banking cartel of a one world order, the system really owns the court system, owns the bank, mob stalks anybody they like, and takes away anything from you, which is like what occurred to me, this father. And many really can ask others, where does all of this go? I mean, isn't it that most people want to know, how do Zionists going to feel about this? If you're in Congress, you're always asking, how are Zionists going to feel about this? only the word Zionist isn't used, isn't it? Something else. But if we've got the gumption enough to speak, and what's the sacred cow in the picture really is you and I, we're the real estate. And this is the unlimited worth. Otherwise, if you've got these stakeholders of the corps influencing all domestic and international policy, so government departments are used just to become more weaponised and go against any voice that would have dissented against that wrongful agenda. And an agent which is in the picture, you could see heading up operations and causing coups to go on, and they can be all set up in Iran, they could be set up in Yemen, they could be set up in Lebanon, they could be set up everywhere. I mean, warlords, and how do you get to become a warlord? There's a process in the company, and everybody's being bankrolled, you see. So you've got a president certainly that was killed in Turtle Island here, and you can see the agent that was present continuing on at a top level, sort of nationally, and you can see agents that work for the company, and many because of where there was retaliation against truth. You could see people really caring about truth, wanting to speak out. You had a very thin skin protecting most, and that when that gets broken, suddenly you realise, how much just a thin skin was there protecting anybody up. Yeah. But what happens where you are all just one-sided and only that you're ever getting one view? Now that is criminal, obvious. It's ridiculous. It's obvious. You see, it's biased. And to anyone ordinary, they're looking at that as being utterly biased. So shouldn't it all be objective, that all of us could see a past in contextual circumstances where you could see otherwise cause services going on where people have all been put to become more mortal enemies of each other as corps, only it's an agenda everybody's being lemming to in a picture, and from only a one-sided policy, and it's yet, you and I and everybody apparent that are paid as credit for all of that, and it's really a chain of command more that is not coming about because you've got some foreign enemy coming down on you because you're not internally regulated. And so that's a message. It's sort of, this is the time to become internally regulated. A lot of departments should be just like disappeared, honest, because it's wrong. They're wrong. I mean, they're doing the wrong thing, in fact. And that's definite, that it's not anything that came from any of us as we're the people, but only helping some agenda, which is really more to do with something depopulating. And so for anybody that would look, they could see certain behind JFK's assassination, everybody really talked about it. And if you look at all the interrogatories and everything before and afterward, it was always talked about as an assassination, before and afterward. And so what's covert intel really is put and monopolised in the media. And so you've got blackouts on any stories that might relate to children not being looked after properly, like what happened to me with the New York Post, for instance, and in New York City. You've got absolute reversal of truth logic that a reporter came to connect, and an article written like, somebody's a pisshead, yes? And that's me. So there you go. That's funny. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully that's sort of a little bit of some instruction, a bit for the day, I guess.
It's really the highlight of my day, Dr. Jubb. I just pulled out the Verifying Your Map book that I got from Amazon. I'll put a link in
Right.
the description of this interview, and um, I don't know why I was waiting to start reading it, but I'll definitely start tonight. I had just
Yeah, it's
been waiting for the right time, I guess. But
yeah. Someone gave me the book. It was the first time that I got a book myself the other day, in fact, um, and I was quite impressed by the people who gave it to me because I knew they must have had some pretty deep intelligence because the subject matter in the book is absolutely incredible, even for me,
wow.
And I think that the author, whoever wrote it, is just phenomenal, actually.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
you're the
so
best.
I've got it out on the desk a little bit, and I'm coming and having a look at it every now and then myself. Yeah, it's quite surprising to me. Yeah, mm,
Thank you so
interesting.
much.
Yeah. Well, anyway, mate. So happy Thanksgiving where you are. And Will you be live streaming tomorrow and the days ahead a little?
Definitely the day after tomorrow. I'll try to get on tomorrow night too. If you love,
Oh
you
yeah,
can
absolutely.
connect with me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
Text me.
yeah, that sounds really good because I'll be done with Thanksgiving. Yeah, and so we'll be continuing on into the evening a bit. Be great. Yeah. So I'll text you. All right.
You're the best.
Anyway, love to everybody who's tuning in to you. And look forward for us to catch up to each other in the future show, mate. Love you, mate.
Me too, mate. Have a
Come
great
on,
day.
Evan.
Bye.
Come on.